Ryan. He expresses his sincerest regrets that he can't be here. He's unfortunately in the hospital at this moment. So,
Oh no.
yeah, so
Again, what is?
I'm getting a little bit more detail about that as the conversation progresses, but
I was
unfortunately,
looking forward to meeting him because I've followed him since I started powerlifting. You know, he's
Ryan's the
been a
shit.
big inspiration to me on
Yeah.
Instagram and that sort of thing. So I hope he gets better.
He is an absolute example for us old men out there who want to feel still relatively strong. Like, but what he broke his foot recently. Like, what else?
yeah. So he just sent me a picture of his. It appears to be his left foot, and the swelling in his ankle and in his foot. It's. I mean, it there. It's. I don't. Maybe I can kind of give you some kind
Yeah,
of.
that picture
Oh
I've
my
seen. I've seen
god,
that
that's
picture. Yeah.
horrible. Oh, looks like a lobster. That's terrible.
Yeah, so that's the
Hey.
updated photo that he just sent me. So our thoughts and prayers are with Ryan, obviously, but he's not
Yeah.
going to be able to join us
One
tonight.
hundred
He
percent.
was expressing his regret at that.
Well, I'll touch base with him and make sure that there's nothing. See if there's anything we can do for him.
Hey, let's
All right.
do this.
So, what are we talking about?
Hey,
What are we talking
welcome
about?
to Unpack Radio. And it's definitely time to call the fitness Avengers for this one. The first issue. Recently, a new celebrity you guys may not know him, Van Lathan. He was having an open conversation with Charlemagne the God. Charlemagne complimented him and said, "You're losing a lot of weight. And I'm proud of you." And his statement was, "I'm on the shot." So lately, a bunch of celebrities and regular people have been taking diabetes medication, which is not prescribed for them because they die on diabetes. They don't have any type of diabetes, but they're using that to lose weight. So we're going to start off with Jack, roll over to Kevin, and we know Steve is going to bring the science. So let's do this. What would you tell your clients if they were stupid enough to take diabetes medications not prescribed for them? You're not diabetic in any way, any form, and you're only using it to lose weight. What would you tell your client, friend, or anyone else that would do something that stupid?
Wouldn't that like crash your insulin levels? I mean, I'm not a science expert, but I think that that could be lethal, right? That could kill you. Does anyone know?
The I mean, if the mechanism of action, I'm unfamiliar. Are we talking about Ozempic?
Yeah, semaglutide, Ozempic. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that can fuck you up. In addition to there's elements of it that make you dependent on it moving forward.
And isn't there a Zempic face where the skin tissue sags and you have to actually get surgery if you lose all that weight and it actually sags and you have to actually get surgery to correct that? That's what I've heard about that. I don't know.
I mean, that's associated with a massive amount of weight loss. If you were extremely obese and then you lost a bunch of weight, there's only so much elasticity your skin has. I'm unsure if it is directly associated with the medication itself, but with rapid and a lot of weight loss, yeah, that's a thing that you have to consider and face.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say it's not healthy.
Yeah, he's speaking to recently there's been a nationwide shortage of
That's my problem.
a drug that typically like you see it marketed and advertised under the brand name Ozempic, and you'll sometimes see it referred to by its chemical name, which is semaglutide. There's a couple other deviants of it, but semaglutide is the popular one. And it was originally created and brought to market for to help monitor the A1C and then glucose levels of diabetes outside of actually messing with their insulin levels. And what they found was that it had a side effect that it suppressed appetite, and it ended up resulting in like long-term weight loss. And so a lot of physicians started to write its usage. They call it off-label usage, where the physician will actually write it for a purpose that it's not actually marketed for. And because it was being written so much in the off-label usage, it actually created a national shortage for the real Ozempic. And so diabetics that needed this medication to help monitor their A1C and to help keep things copacetic for them, they were unable to get it. It's recently only kind of come onto the scene in like the quote unquote weight loss fitness realm in the last year or so. To the point where it's so popular now that it's being sold in underground chemical facilities and such that manufacture like black market steroids for production in the United States. So it's become so popular that it's recreationally available on the black market as well as in its pharmaceutical form. And there are some like long-term side effects. Some of them are even surrounding like personality and the way you from what I understand, it can make people kind of deadpan long term, if that makes sense. Like it can kind of it can interfere with some of their long term emotional processing things. I can't speak to any of its physical long term side effects because, like we said, it's only kind of come onto the scene in the last year or so. But I am familiar with the nationwide shortage surrounding the diabetics and how they're not able to get the medication.
So this is something that's affected actually one of my clients. Good kid. He's only 5'6" and he's 50. He's 50 years old. He's older than me. But he's 410 pounds. Mm-hmm. And this was prescribed to him. And in the United States, not everybody has access to insurance or good insurance. So because of the shortage, prices just skyrocketed. It became extremely difficult for some people to afford, and typically the people who couldn't afford it are the people that actually need it. People using it recreationally to slim up for a role or bodybuilding, using it primarily for an appetite suppressant, which is very powerful. But there are other options that don't deny people the use of a medication that could really drastically impact their life. So normally, if there's plenty of supply and something was intended for one thing, and it's being utilized for another, if it's not, doesn't come with significant health risks, I don't care. This one, and I'm not a violent person anymore, but this one, I would slap the fucking shit out of you if I saw you using this for appetite when people I know are going without. It makes me legitimately angry, and perhaps that's not okay or PC to say, but that's how I feel about it.
All right, next question. Dolph Lundgren, unfortunately, is suffering from cancer. He's saying his abuse of anabolics, which caused the cancer. What are your thoughts and your opinions on that issue? Starting with Jack, and let's go around the circle.
Well, I'm a huge fan of him. Rocky is my favorite movie. So, he was, I always, looked up to Dolph Lundgren. I followed his career for the longest time. He's a very smart man. I know he's got several master's degrees, and I forget what exactly they were, but it's like engineering.
Engineering is one of them.
Chemical
engineering specifically, I think.
Yeah, when he was in the 80s, I mean, his physique was just amazing. So that's really sad to hear. I'm not against people using anabolics at all, but doing it safely is the important part. And if that's why he has the cancer, that's just a really sad thing. I think he's a really good person, and regardless of his steroid use or not, my prayers are with him because I've always been a fan.
I would ask first, where did that information come from? Because if somebody used a substance at some point in their life, it's one of the first things that people blame something on. 1 in 3 people get cancer. I'd need to know, what kind of cancer is it? Did an actual medical professional with knowledge of the substances that he used and or was using link it? Was it a chemical that is known to proliferate or increase the risk of cancer? I'd want to know all those things. If it's some jackwad on the internet expressing their opinion, fuck them. The man has cancer. Let's focus on the fact that yet another person, this happens to be a known person, is suffering from what I hope we direct more resources towards actually solving. Another personal one for me, obviously, because I started my whole health and wellness kick after I lost my sister to a 6-year battle of cancer.
I'm sorry about that.
That was back in 2019. I'm better with it. And she was literally the strongest person I've ever met. I was a Marine. I served with Marine Corps Special Operations Command, 2nd Battalion. I have done some shit in my life that is challenging and hard. She made me look like a sissy, a timid, no backbone little sissy. She was so strong and so tough. So if we could direct our focus on solving that problem instead of maligning somebody because you had a random thought bounce around your empty skull, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I'm somewhat unfamiliar with the type of cancer that he's battling with. I'm unfamiliar with whether the statement that it could potentially be caused or exacerbated by anabolics use. I'm unsure whether that statement came from him or is coming from a medical professional, whether that is just like a circulating social media myth. I'm unfamiliar with some of the nuance of this. But what I will say is that there are certain anabolics and certain peptides that especially in laboratory settings and in rodent control settings.
Nice.
They've shown that they will exacerbate the growth of malignant cells. Especially, there's a popular compound in bodybuilding. It's a recovery compound called TB500. And what it is a synthesized human peptide. It's non-anabolic. It's not a steroid. It's not androgenic. But what it does do is promote the synthesis of new tissue cells, which is incredibly useful if you've torn your distal bicep tendon, like your friend did at that bicep or at that arm wrestling meet. So
is that the Wolverine one? Is that what they call the Wolverine drug? Okay,
yeah,
all right.
correct.
I think I've heard of it.
You'll see it paired with another product called BPC-157, which is synthesized from human gastrointestinal juices. Anyway, you combine these two peptide compounds together, and they create this incredible healing compound. Like the tissue growth rates are incredible, and you'll see world-class powerlifters. Think Travis Rogers, Ken Cooper, think guys of that nature, Joe Sullivan. You'll see them completely tear a bicep tendon off, completely double rupture, like full bilateral quad tendon ruptures in Travis Rogers' case. And they're back under the bar competing within 3 months. And that's the use of some of these compounds like this. Now, because the compound works so well at creating new tissue and building.
That makes sense.
Yeah, correct. It's not tissue selective. It's systemic.
Yeah. Okay.
And
gotcha.
so it's been shown in like rodent studies that if you do have like a tumor cell that would otherwise be benign, it can cause it to become malignant.
Holy shit.
And it can cause the exacerbation of those growth cells that otherwise would never have grown in the first place. So
that's rolling the dice. I would never mess with that. That's rolling the dice.
It does kind of become a slippery slope, and it's worth noting that in the 1970s and 80s, the safer use model didn't exist. We didn't have the knowledge that we have now surrounding organ imaging, surrounding safer use practices involving blood work, what dosages are appropriate for which people, when, and where. That knowledge didn't exist in the 70s and 80s, and they kind of just blasted their face off year round. So I'm not surprised to see some of these like long-term health outcomes from some of these larger bodybuilders in the golden era. But to say directly that androgenic steroids caused or exacerbated his cancer usage would be literally impossible to prove. Like, there's no way. Because you could also say that it was his diet soda consumption. It was the Coke Zero that got him.
Or the bottle that he had it in.
Yeah, there's no way to actually prove that. So I'm interested to kind of look into that a bit more for my own curiosity. But
yeah,
it's a sad thing all around because he's a childhood hero for a lot of people.
Yeah, my prayers are with him, 100%.
Red Scorpion, Showdown in Little Tokyo. These are movies that shaped me as a human being.
And he's a great person too. From interviews I've seen,
philanthropic,
people that have worked with him, they say that he's just a really smart, genuine, and kind person. So, yeah, my heart goes out to him.
And he punched Sylvester Stallone so hard he almost killed him. Put him in the hospital for 2 weeks. Like the guy's, he's a saint.
Yeah, he's one of those actors, and you'll come across other actors like this on social media, and they're so universally respected and they're so universally spoken well about that you have to just assume they are good people. When 300 people line up to say what a good person you are and how nice and kind you are, even if I've never met you, I have to assume that perhaps 300 people haven't been bamboozled, that maybe you are genuinely a good person. And the overwhelming preponderance of what I hear surrounding him is that he was a very good person, that he was very kind.
Well, let's hope he makes it through this thing.
All right, guys. Next question.
Uh-oh. You froze. Pope, what's going on? Are you seizing up?
That's not the best frame to get froze on either.
I mean, it objectively could be a lot worse. So
it could.
There we go. We're losing you, Pope. I can't read lips.
Whatever he's saying, he's really saying it, though.
He really is, though.
Damn, I feel like I'm missing out on some universal knowledge right now.
This is juicy. I'll just answer however.
I'm going to guess. We can't hear you, brother. I'm going to type. I'm going to let him know.
Yeah. I can't hear you. No.
It's probably your Bluetooth. If you got near your car or you turned your car or some shit on, it probably.
Yeah, that happens.
I wonder if he can hear us.
I have online clients that they're in their car, and whenever they put in the Bluetooth, the audio is always shot.
Well, I have an interesting story surrounding Bluetooth picking up. From what I understand, my little brother was watching inappropriate adult content in his house, And when his wife came home and her car pulled into the driveway, her car synced to his phone automatically.
Oh no!
And what he was watching started to play on the surround sound car stereo, which I thought was cosmically beautiful. But
How'd the marriage go after that?
they're still together, thankfully.
Oh,
They
thank
didn't be trashy. Must have been respectful, at least.
There you go. There you go. I'm sure there's a lot of jokes about it.
Fortunately, I ain't got that problem. If my wife finds a juicy bit, she'll share it with me. And
Oh
likewise,
no, she doesn't let it die.
we got a healthy relationship there, and we both really enjoy butts. So
I'm really glad the culture has shifted surrounding that. So in the 90s and 2000s, big butts were not it. And now we've recognized that as a species, we've collectively moved forward with our consciousness enough to collectively recognize.
I hope we don't go back, because heroin chic was never good. I never enjoyed that.
I agree.
Yeah, I do like the muscle mommy trend.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan.
That could stick around if it wanted to.
Yeah.
Speaking of inappropriate audio, I put up, just for, I don't know, I got a goblin that infested my brain or something. I put up a squat video. I hit 425 beltless, which is for me, which is like a lot for my size, for my weight, blah, 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 weak, whatever. But for me, that's the most I've ever done. But I paired it with an audio that somebody had put on Instagram. Somebody like of some selection of spicy content where a woman was screaming, "You're breaking my back." And I put that as the audio. And great. People are playing it too loud, and they're like messaging me nonstop. Dude, I played that in front of my mom. God, I played that at 3 a.m. and I think people heard me.
And you know what the funny thing is with Instagram, you can't control the volume levels.
Nope.
Like you just, if it turn on full Instagram, blast. It'll go full blast.
Yep.
So yeah, you got some people in trouble with that.
Hey, I'm back. Hopefully, guys. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear
you. We can hear you. You're back.
Thank you. My next question was, I noticed a lot of celebrities have been binge eating. Kylie Muscle. Everybody's getting into the binge eating. What is your thoughts on these major fitness celebrities now switching over
to binging? I never even heard of this.
Mukbangs.
I see.
I said binge eating.
Yeah.
Mukbangs.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like the TikTok trend. Yeah, I think that's gross. I think that's really disgusting, health wise, and to do it on public like that and promote that when we have such a major obesity problem in America, one of the #1 killers. I mean, and you're contributing to that. I think that there's something mentally wrong with you if you're promoting, something as dangerous as that. So I'm totally against that.
I'm going to point out that these are the same people who have been selling you bullshit supplements, who have been lying about their own PED use, who have been giving you fake ass pump programs and feeder programs, and pretending whatever they need to in order to make a buck for the last 2, 3, 4, 5 decades. Nothing's changed. This is just the latest iteration of their bullshit.
Yeah. I struggle to see the entertainment value in a lot of it, mainly because when I watch it, a lot of it I find to be quite disgusting. Like it just doesn't do anything for me. But I guess I'm not the target audience.
Good point.
I have to recognize that they wouldn't be doing it if they weren't getting views. They wouldn't be doing it if they weren't getting paid. So whether they should or shouldn't, I think is just. I mean, we can argue the morality of it all day long.
But it won't make an impact.
I was about to say, but it's more worrying that is the style of content that's become profitable and it's become so easy and that people kind of like and they look forward to. And I think it might just be some of that misery loves company mindset, where we're normalizing behaviors that we know aren't good. So when we're watching other people engage in behaviors that are even worse, it makes us feel better about our bad choices. I'm not sure what it is, but obviously I will kind of finish this off by saying Kylie Muscle has never been a reputable source for credible fitness information. So
his pre-workout is awful.
I will also say that Cali Muscle, in and of himself, is and always has been a meme in the fitness industry.
Yeah.
Yeah. If ever anybody were to engage with me on a debate surrounding fitness and they were to quote Cali Muscle or his principles, I would consider the debate won for myself. So,
Immediate loss of credibility.
yeah.
Yep.
So
They concede.
Yeah.
That will be true. Now, just notice it seemed like once the fitness lights slowed down,
So it's my understanding that he had some kind of a recent health scare surrounding some of his anabolic PED usage.
Yep, he had a heart attack.
And it makes sense because that's the most common, like the left ventricular enlargement is the most common side effect you see from like long-term PED abuse. And being that he's walked around at almost 300 pounds, and the troubling part is he's maintained that size for so long because it's the content he creates. And if he's not shirtless with veins the size of garden hoses going across his chest, people don't want to watch it. And unfortunately, it looks like he sacrificed some of his long-term health for that. So I can understand him wanting to pivot in a direction that's potentially more healthy. But then my immediate thought is, well, what is the absolute worst thing we could do to a damaged heart that's suffering enlargement? Oh, well, let's just slam
packet full of fat.
Yeah, let's just do 300 grams of saturated fat in one meal. That'll and probably 10 grams of salt. That'll definitely heal her up quick.
Yeah. It's sad that people are literally
muted.
Die for views. That's just the reality we live in today.
And we can see you, but we can't hear you, brother.
You're muted. All right, now you've muted.
He muted and unmuted.
Yeah, I don't think it's weird. His audio keeps cutting out.
There's a voyeuristic tendency, like you pointed out, to watch people do destructive behavior to feel better about themselves. But there is a growing portion of people out there that literally, they just enjoy watching someone else fall apart or take risks.
It's like a snuff film.
I wouldn't put it on that level. I would put it more on the level of watching Jackass, somebody getting punched in the nuts.
Yeah.
You know, because we do have our limits. We have a threshold where we're like, oh, that was too far. Oh, that makes me uncomfortable. That makes me consider my own mortality. But when the average person watching someone do something they enjoy that's destructive doesn't identify with the person who's doing it. So it's the opposite relationship. It's if they see a fit person doing it, they're generally not a fit person who's sitting and watching them do something destructive. The people who the feeder folk, the people who really enjoy watching someone get to 6, 7, 8, 900 pounds and become dependent on someone else, they're not in that condition themselves. They like watching someone else do that to themselves. We're not inherently good, in my opinion. We have base instincts that are gross, and we have base instincts that are higher brains. Our society should help us control and move past, and watching other people suffering, unfortunately, is one of them. It's satisfying to a large portion of the population. It's extremely profitable, and people are willing to pay a lot of fucking money to watch somebody else hurt themselves. My wife, she might get mad, used to think that she was into the idea of people self-amputating small portions of their body. And then she saw a video. She talked a big game about it when she was like an angsty teenager. And then she saw a video about it and she was repulsed and she was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, I never want to see that again.
Sure.
But people pay tens of thousands of dollars for someone to chop off their little toe or other parts of their anatomy on film.
Wow.
Folks are sick.
Wow. Is this like on the dark web, or is this like on TikTok, or is this like...
I guess you got to know where to go, but it's not exactly the dark web. It's on the internet.
Link in bio.
Yeah, wow. Link in bio. Link in bio.
Yeah, it's whenever the clout goes away and people jump out there and do anything for the clout, and it seems to me. And I notice, I don't know how this is happening, but our favorite person has bought every ad in the world, and I need his advertisement team. But V Shred is back. So what is your opinion on this individual, if you have one?
Are we really going to spend another second of airtime talking about this Jagwagon?
I think I can summarize it pretty quickly. And I want to immediately point out that the person that you likely have some of these negative feelings towards, Vince, Vance, whatever his name is not the owner or creator of that company. He is a pretty model that they found on Instagram. He was struggling to make fitness content, and they hired him to do exclusive content for their company. To my knowledge, it's owned by three men. I've heard that they're actually Russian. I'm not sure that they're American or not. but I've heard that it's owned by individuals that are not in the fitness industry, and that it's owned and ran as a for-profit venture, and that Vince Vance, whatever his name is
Vince Van Sant,
he's purely a mouthpiece
Yeah.
on a contractual obligation.
a really
So I will say that
slappable mouthpiece.
I found some of their content to be deceptive and misleading. With that said, I will also say that outside of the odd mandatory 15-second ad that I can't skip on YouTube, I've never consumed any of their content, so I can't speak to any of the actual point-by-point inaccuracies in their practices. But I would say that he is not and has never been the owner, and that he is purely the mouthpiece for a profit-making monster. And they do make a monstrous profit, make no mistake.
So I can speak to a bit towards the content, because as somebody who formerly did call out content, I would investigate the people that I was going to call out. And given the people that I used to associate with, that was a particularly favorite target of theirs. There is absolute nonsense on there. It's not just about somatotypes. That's the tip of the iceberg. There are claims in there that foods with capsaicin will turn you into a fat burning machine. I eat a lot of spicy food. I am not a fat burning machine. I still have to be in a deficit to lose weight. And the biological effect of even large doses of capsaicin is like 30 calories in a day.
That's what I was about to say. Like the net BMR rate, or the net increase in like non-exercise activity thermogenesis, is so low that it's almost
so low.
It's what they call not statistically significant.
You're going to burn more calories going to the bathroom to fire shit whatever spicy food it is you ate than you are from the capsaicin itself. So it's all bad information like that. The workouts, they're not terrible. They're
Cookie
not like
cutter, probably.
Yeah, absolutely. They're like whatever you're going to get from somebody else for a third of the price.
Yeah.
So like, but again, we hate Vince because we see him all the time.
Yeah.
He is no worse than 99% of bodybuilding.com. He's no worse than 99% of the people who are selling you something out there.
I would agree. Fair.
Now, in this world where you're getting so much misinformation, where do you go to get the correct information?
Everywhere.
That's a really good way to say it.
God. So I do the same thing with the news. If I see something I immediately agree with on MCBI or one of the other places that posts the results of research and whatnot, I'll click on the links from Dr. Brad Schoenfeld. As much as I respect that guy, if he says something that I immediately agree with, I immediately question myself, because you got to check your internal bias. It's work. Like knowing things, being actually educated on any subject is advanced. You have to actually try. You are not passively or through osmosis or through your divine God-given ability to spot patterns and guess going to know more than if you challenge your presumptions, your internal bias, read thoroughly, try to deeply understand. You can't just read the summary of like a clinical trial and put that on the same level as 42 study meta-analysis. Like you just can't do that, but people do. And they don't understand where it comes from. It's work. You have to know what you're talking about. So you find the people that you trust, you find the people who have demonstrated that they prove themselves over time. That means you have to question them less, but you still should be questioning them. I loved John Meadows. Loved that guy. He said a bunch of stuff that wasn't true. I mean, it worked for him, but it wasn't something that everybody could employ. And anybody who's out there talking about this works for the vast majority of people, you should immediately question, because there's so many individual variables with anything from exercise methodology to the response to chemicals to the whole 9 yards. Anyway, I'll shut up, but like
anyone who really speaks in absolutes is a red flag right there.
Or a Sith
industry, because there's always studies, there's always other angles to it. So I always am very distrustful of someone who speaks in absolutes about something, especially going through with my clients' fitness journeys. Like each of their journey has been different. They react different to different triggers, to different foods, to different caloric deficits, and so you have to, go by the person a lot of times, and you just can't take general information and apply it to everyone. So, that's my opinion.
So I kind of liked how Kevin said that the places that he looks is everywhere. And I know of young aspiring exercise science majors, aspiring CPTs who are what I tend to call the PubMed warriors.
That's
They,
I like that.
They try to consume and keep track of every piece of emerging literature. That's every scrap of piece of information that comes out on PubMed surrounding exercise science or sports or strength and conditioning or what have you. And the problem being that a lot of these studies are done on untrained individuals with small sample sizes, and they're what are called mechanistic studies. They don't actually deal in human outcome. So kind of what Kevin's speaking to, if, and I strongly use the word if, you're somewhat familiar with some of these sites, you're somewhat familiar with reading some of these papers, if you can kind of bias some of your attention towards the meta-analysis, towards human outcome studies, you'll be in a good spot there. And then something that's a bit more actionable for potential listeners. I find good bits of information on Spotify through podcasts, and I find good information on YouTube through. So, for example, some of the listeners here might be interested in weight loss or nutrition and Renaissance periodization. And Dr. Mike Israetel, it's great. It's great short form content, averaging 5 to 15 minutes per topic. If you go on the RP site, like their playlists are broken down by topic. You know, dieting for muscle gain, dieting for fat loss,
and that's all free.
Correct, and it's completely free. And similar to that, if you have an interest in strength programming, you can do the same thing with a company called Juggernaut Strength Systems. And 5 to 10 years ago, Chad Wesley Smith was putting everything in the world out on his YouTube channels for free, and that's all archived.
Yep.
You can go back and see all of that. And I think what becomes most important is being able to vet good information sources from bad ones, because the fitness industry is filled with Vinces that are just screaming into the void. And unfortunately, the loudest voices get heard by the most people. And that's not good, because the loudest voices are rarely the most credible voices. The voices that you really should be listening to are likely so deep in the trenches, as we say, that they're not on social media screaming into the void for everyone to hear. So you have to be able to find good sources of information relative to your interest. And that can be on podcasts. I really enjoy the Barbell Medicine podcast, for example.
I like Iron Culture. That's a good one as well.
That's a good one as well, for sure. And you can pick up just a lot of information just through passive absorption, and just by being a fan, by being a true student of whatever the topic that interests you is. And so, for example, Kevin and I were speaking at the beginning of the show. I've recently been getting into arm wrestling, and I'm watching a lot of good content on arm wrestling, on different positions, on different ways to execute, to frame up your body, things of that nature. And
the shit I didn't know. It's amazing.
Yeah, and so when you speak to someone tearing their bicep, I would hazard to assume that he was squared up with you, and he likely turned away, trying to create more leverage, and pop snap.
He was fully extended. His hand was an inch below. He was already beat, and then he leaned back and tried to curl my 265-pound body.
Like in a King's move, like he sat all the way back. Oh, no, that's like...
I felt it, and you could hear it on the video. It just went...
Yeah, that's pretty gnarly. But
I feel terrible for him.
Yeah, you got to find good sources of information and vet them, and then consume the information and be passionate about whatever you're trying to learn.
I think to piggyback on what you're saying too is a lot of times I judge someone on whether I see them lifting on their social media, if they're actually lifting. You have so many of these like pencil neck geeks, excuse the language, talking about optimal lifting or optimal this. And it's like, you look at them and you're looking at their page, and all they're doing is, stretching exercises or ice baths, and you don't see any video of them lifting. And it's like, well, how can you speak to me, about what the optimal way to, lift is?
Like lacking real world experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I respectfully disagree to a point. I mean, it's something to consider. But if you take a look at Dr. Brad Schoenfeld, he looks like an accountant. But I guarantee he knows more than all three of us combined.
Okay.
So I wouldn't say that.
I'm about to say, I can think of examples like that in the powerlifting world. Steve Denovi is probably one of the most respected coaches I can think of. He coaches Angelo Fortino. He coaches some absolute monsters in the USAPL. He owns a company called PR's Performance. And my man maybe totals 1,000 pounds on a good day. You know what I mean? But now I will say, it's kind of speaking to Jack's point, those guys are going to be the strong exception. And their credentials are going to be so deep and so vast, and the respect they have in the community is going to be so strong that their credentials are undeniable, irrespective of their lifting or their accomplishments. But what I kind of can see where Jack's coming from, that if someone's going to teach me how to do a backflip, it would behoove you to show me that you can do a backflip.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know what I mean? Like, I get it.
That's fair.
Point. Like, even as far as inspiring client confidence, you know, my clients are confident in me that I can get them stronger because I continue to get myself stronger.
Mhm.
And as much as that is not a good indicator of a good coach or good programming, let's just call it what it is. Like, when my deadlift gets bigger, people get excited, and that's
You lead by example.
It needs to be a mix, but fitness especially, but with any field, just because you're good at a thing doesn't mean you're good at teaching a thing,
For
good
sure.
at coaching a thing,
That's
good
true.
at managing a thing.
yes.
There are slightly different disciplines. I did want to piggyback off the vetting thing, though, because I think it's very important that it's understood. It is not a one-time activity, the vetting.
Right.
If you follow my old content, anybody out there, I like Jeff Cavalier as a human being, and I think that the
Hell of a
majority of
business.
his content is useful. I have to vet that man because there's stuff I actively disagree with. His entire 100 series, I think, is actively bad.
Right.
I think it's not advisable to arbitrarily pick a static number of effective reps and then to the specific exercise selection of using, I use 120-pound dumbbells for a set of 12. So now I've done my set of 12, and now I have to do 20 more effective reps with only 15 seconds of rest. I dropped one of those weights on my face.
Yeah.
It's a bad move. I don't think that it's not defensible, in my opinion. I still like the guy. I'd still do, you know, if he asked me for a favor, I'd still do the favor for him. I still think that a lot of his content is really good for a lot of people, but you have to just because somebody you know and have vetted before has said a thing doesn't mean that everything that comes out of their mouth, or even the majority of the things that come out of their mouth, are substantive, are effective, are true. And we constantly have to, we hear a bit of information, we have to assess, do I have a reason to believe this? Does this conform with other things that are similar? Are there common denominators across this topic and related topics that support it as being true? And that's exhausting, but it's what we have to do if we actually want to know if somebody is reliable or if something is the preponderance of truth.
You know, and I've seen a phenomenon similar to that surrounding a lot of content creators that have been, quote unquote, in the game for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So Jeff Cavalier comes to mind. Dave Tate is another one that
that was the next name I was going to say.
So Dave Tate on about every podcast episode talks about how he used to go around and do seminars for Louis, and he would teach people how to squat, and he was completely dead ass wrong because he was teaching them how to squat in multiply gear, and these were raw squatters. And so the whole like open up and sit back thing, it doesn't work raw.
No,
like,
if you've tried it raw, that's a rude awakening.
Like vertical shins don't work raw. And
no.
So he routinely has to walk back a lot of the things he said. And then similarly, you'll run into a phenomenon. There's a famous powerlifter named Joe Sullivan. And I respect Joe for a lot of
I love Joe. I met him before. He's a great guy.
Yeah, I respect Joe for a lot of the accomplishments he's done within the sport. I respect him for a lot of the helpful content he puts out, especially surrounding safer use of PEDs. I think that's a good conversation to be had in this time period.
Sure.
However, Joe has been in the game, so to speak, for so long and has been making content for so long that he's inevitably going to be wrong. And he's inevitably going to say some shit that he ends up contradicting himself on. So it's helpful to understand that if I'm going back and I'm watching a YouTube video that's perhaps 12 years old and that's maybe tailored to a general fitness audience, I would potentially expect there to be some bad science in there. Just because it's 12 years old. And even if it was absolutely concurrent with the best science at the time, I can say confidently that 12 years ago, we believed that training to failure was much more important for hypertrophy outcomes. Yep. Whereas now, even bodybuilders, powerlifters have known it for a while, but bodybuilders are coming around to the RPE, RIR scale. They're coming to realize that reps in reserve and proximity to failure is incredibly important. 12 years ago, that wasn't even 12 years ago, that conversation wasn't being had. So
nobody was talking about fatigue management 12 years ago. They were talking about how hard and what sacrifice and leaving your blood, sweat, and tears. And it's just not more effective. It's not.
Yeah. So when Jeff Cavalier has a couple of videos that I disagree with or I think are somewhat cringy, I would completely agree with you that on the whole, his content has been immensely helpful to the fitness industry, that he's helped potentially millions of people, millions of viewers.
Yeah.
And that any harm that some of his bad content has produced inadvertently would be far outweighed by some of that. But I see that quite a bit with some of these content creators that produce a ton of content and they have produced it for a long time. They're going to contradict themselves. They're going to be wrong. They're going to put out bad shit. And hopefully the smart ones are able to walk that back and correct it as they go and say, hey,
that's all I need.
Yeah. And one of my favorite things is is Dr. Feigenbaum with barbell medicine, is he'll say, you know, this is my position, but I reserve the right to change my position as new evidence comes to light and is brought to my attention.
I think,
and that's how we should
Lane
really.
Norton says that as well.
That's how really everybody should say anything.
Should be.
That's anytime I make any statement based on anything, it should be with the implicit assumption that if I'm presented with new information, I have the right to change my mind, and I should. So it's important that you see some of your informational sources doing that they're updating some of their old information. Okay, so Bryce Kocherek or whatever with Calgary Barbell, he recently put out a video where he had made a deadlift tutorial demonizing spinal flexion and demonized the hell out of spinal flexion.
Yes,
and it's important to realize this is 5-7 years ago, and he was a McGill fanboy, and that he recently, as of like a few days ago, came out with another video updating his position on spinal flexion and its rates of injury in the deadlift. And he had to say, hey man, I was wrong. And the reason I was wrong is I was going with what I thought was the best evidence at the time. New evidence has come to light that's changed my opinion, and here I am updating my viewers to my new opinion, and this is why my opinion's changed. And I respect the hell out of that. I shared it to my story. I thought that was an awesome thing for him to do.
He's a good dude, and I can speak to the fact that was authentic, that he didn't feel like he had to do that or anything. Like, that's just who he is, and that's what I think we need to see more of.
Accountability, 100%.
Pope, can we hear you now?
Yeah, you guys are doing a wonderful job of holding the Unpack Radio down for me. But while you can still hear me, I owe Kevin and Steve a big apology because, as you know, my rotator cuff right now is wrecked. But I've been going hard on my squat journey, and for whatever reason, my body's 100% looking better doing squats only. So why is it seems the squat is the most effective exercise for building muscle?
I wouldn't say that it is.
I would argue. For me personally, I like the deadlift. I think that's put on the most amount of mass for me. You can't do it as frequently as the squat, so maybe it's you have a little bit more frequency you're able to have a little bit more recovery time with the squat than with something like the deadlift. But I've always found my best results with the deadlift. I don't know.
There have been a number of I don't know if they were going. I read these like 10 years ago, so I don't want to say something definitively that isn't. I have formerly been exposed to papers that demonstrated with a variety of sizes of sample groups that squatting alone could develop upper body muscle mass, whether that is a result of the isometric strain, whether that is a result of a systemic stimulation. It requires a lot out of the body, and that's why you will start to see things. It's a big challenge. The other thing is that you didn't squat for like 40 years of your life, my dude. You didn't train legs for like 40 years of your life. You're super compensating. So you're seeing big results because this is something that you have drastically ignored. I can't say that hip thrusts are the single best effective exercise at building an ass because I never worked on my ass until I made a challenge with a grown-ass black woman that I would have a bigger butt than her by the end of the year, which was probably a mistake, but I'm gonna try. And I started doing hip thrusts, and since I never worked on my backside before, now I'm seeing a bunch of gains there. That's just what happens. I don't think it's the best muscle builder out there. I think it's a staple, an incredible pillar of exercise options, but I wouldn't say best.
Let's see. So going with the continuing theme of what's the best, if I'm allowed to choose a super compound movement,
Absolutely.
Honestly, it's probably going to be a clean and jerk, especially if we're talking a clean and jerk to a full squat. You've got the dynamic pull portion. You've got the full range squat, front squat isometric. You've got the overhead press. It would be. I mean, there maybe is something else that I'm just not considering, but that's a good one. And then beyond that, I also believe the conventional deadlift to be a superior builder of mass to the squat. And I think a lot of that has to do with a few things, and some of that's going to be relative load. So you're able to lift more weight in the deadlift. You're able to accrue more fatigue in a shorter period of time. You're able to recruit more muscle fibers, being that larger muscles are used, like larger main movers are used in the deadlift and in the squat. But it's worth noting that they both peripherally recruit almost everything in stabilizing.
Steve, I've got a quick question for you. So from a power lifter, how do you get into Olympic lifting? Because I am terrified to do things like, clean and jerk and that sort of thing. How do you prime yourself to get into that? Because it just seems like for me, I would get injured. Is it as safe as the main three, or is there some way that you can ease into that? It just seems like a very complicated, Olympic lifting just seems very advanced for me. So I'm interested in, how you bridge that gap.
So I myself am a competitive power lifter, but I'm a strength coach by trade full time. And then regarding learning the Olympic weightlifting movements, obviously a coach is going to be the most helpful thing. Like a hands-on in-person coach is going to be the most helpful tool. But beyond that, it's going to be like learning to do anything else, and we're going to scale load, volume, and exposure, and then we're going to linearly increase them over time. So we're going to get you practicing with light weights until you're proficient with the movement. We're going to start to add volume and intensity at that point. We're going to get you stronger. We're going to see where form breaks down just like if you were going to teach somebody the sumo deadlift. There's a series of steps that you would take to teach them that movement, and you wouldn't start with a 1RM test of a brand new movement. Because you're right, if any of us...
I'm back, thank goodness. My next question is, unfortunately...
Next question.
Oh, he cut out.
Again? Oh, man, he was hyped, too. I felt like that was going to be a bang.
Oh, it's probably going to be a bang.
Real quick, what's the next question? Oh, and he's muted. Now we can't hear him. Man.
Well, thanks for answering my question, Steve. I appreciate that.
Yeah. It's just, but you're right. Being that likely none of us have the requisite mobility to do full 1RM Olympic lifting right out of the gate, I would highly advise that nobody attempts that. But it's like anything else. You find an entry point and then you scale linearly in terms of any of it, frequency, volume, and intensity.
And you just break down the movements piece by piece.
There we go. I'm back.
What's going on, Mac?
Yeah, it's pretty easy to separate some of the movements into their base components. Like you'll see Olympic lifters do quite a bit of like what they call low pulls, which essentially just looks like a speed deadlift off the ground. And then you'll see them do things like hang clings. That's another way to break the movement down. They'll do jerk presses off of boxes. So you'll see them have these high boxes, and they'll just press from the boxes. So you can break the movement down into its constituent parts and start to work on weaknesses and maybe make it more digestible as a series of events in that way.
Okay.
But really, it would be just finding a really good Olympic weightlifter to help you out in person, and that would be the number one thing. It's like teaching someone to deadlift. I could do it over the internet, like through a series of videos back and forth, but the flow of information isn't going to be nearly as fast as if I'm in person, because then I'm able to give you tactile feedback, like proprioceptive feedback. I can touch you, and then I'm also able to give information back in real time that isn't hindered by the flow of video and then response.
Also, I'd like to point out that your fear is perfectly normal. You don't remember it, but you were terrified to walk. You managed to figure that one out.
For sure. Still am sometimes.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, I can only feel one of my legs, so I'm actually like stairs scare me. Do we have Pope back yet?
No, he's it looks like he's trying to load in.
He's in the black void of death.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't know loading screen for him. I mean, I'm glad that he was able to at least finish his family dinner.
Yeah,
I was hoping he would make it back to the house in that hour, but
that's what I was hoping.
Being the extensive number of goodbyes he said, I'm gathering this is rather a large outing. So.
We'll find out that this is just an average Wednesday for him.
So it sounds like he's going to do some karaoke next Wednesday.
I tell you what, I tear up some karaoke. So I know he's down in Maryland. I do it sober. Like I rock the house.
I threatened my best friend that when we go to Vegas, I'm going to do Higher from Creed on my karaoke.
Oh, man.
So
that's a strong one.
Be ready.
That's a strong one.
I mean, it's not technically difficult. You have to worry about the crowd. They either love Creed secretly and will jam, or they hate Creed openly and you'll have to have an escort to your car.
I'm going to love it either way.
If they're our age and we're talking like roughly 30 and above, and their crowd is Caucasian, you're looking at a home run, man.
Yeah, that's fair.
Same thing with like a strong Nickelback showing.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You could do like "How You Remind Me" or something. Nobody's gonna pretend like they don't love us.
I'm gonna belt it out.
Norris. Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
I'm screen capping this.
Yeah, we should. We should
Hold on a second.
And we could make a collage. Of
Yeah, we can make a
Norris.
collage and send it to him. Oh my god, I'm definitely doing that right now. Gotcha.
Well, he's at least done.
That's his profile pic from now on.
Hopefully his Wi-Fi kicks on here pretty soon. I'll make that his contact picture.
I'm doing that. I'm putting that on my phone.
But now we got 2
I think
posts.
I'm back.
You're back.
I think I'm back now. Lord
You're
Jesus,
back.
never again. Never again. T-Mobile.
Oh yeah, I could have told you that.
Was karaoke. Kevin,
Oh
you
yeah,
said
we were just
karaoke
just saying that you had mentioned karaoke, and I said if I ever come down to Maryland, we're gonna absolutely rock the house.
Oh well, come on and do it. I don't hold no tone, but I did it for funsies, and I believe that life is too short to go around being shy.
I agree.
Yeah.
All
Tomorrow,
right, so you had an important question for us that got gobbled up by the internet. What was it?
man. Oh, what was this? At this point, I'm so frustrated with this phone, I can't even remember.
All right.
Yeah.
This is not an advertisement for T-Mobile.
No, because my wife, she has Verizon. She's always doing some type of video conference, and we've been North Carolina, South Carolina at a USPA meet, and her phone's still staying strong. Matter of fact, that's what I was going to bring up. I know I spoke to Jack about this already last podcast, but Steve has the flags in his house. I know Kevin's a big time supporter. So how do you guys feel about the USPA issue, and what can they do to clean up their image currently?
Who wants to start? Did we lose Steve? He looks frozen.
Steve, are you frozen or are you just thinking?
No.
That's what he thinks. He's like, I'm not even commenting on this.
I like I said in the last podcast, I took down my USPA banner just because I train clients there, and I don't want to be associated with sex offenders and that sort of thing. I really hope they do clean up their act though, because USPA was the first meet I've ever done. So I've got a lot of sentimental love for the organization, but I can't support an organization that has that really was negligent in putting people who are sex offenders in youth powerlifting meets. That's just putting children in danger, and I can't associate with that, and I totally condemn that.
I feel largely the same. I went to a USPA meet 3.5 weeks ago to support my athletes. For many of them, it was their first meet, and we had a sit-down conversation when everything came out. We talked about it, and we was like, hey, guys, I'm not going to be a part of this organization. I'm not going to compete. However, I would never make that decision for you, and I will be there to support you if you want to move forward. And since 6 of them went, 5 of them, it was their first meet ever. One of them, it was his 5th meet, but they all performed very well. 2 of them took best lifter. One of them qualified for nationals. 5 of them medaled. One of them, he was in a very competitive age group and weight class. So, he performed very well. He set PRs for himself, and that's really all it's about. So they had a wonderful time. And I'm even making a video on it. I will support my kids wherever they go. But I will not get a single dollar.
Told me point blank period that he's not going to coach any USPA meets. And that's what he just, that's just his stand. But I totally hear where you're coming from. You got to support the lifters, and if that's the only option they have in the area,
for us,
then you can't deny them a great experience, because my first powerlifting meet was one of my best experiences of my life.
It's so formative.
So you got to support them in that.
And I always will, but my gym will not ever host a USPA meet until there is significant organizational change. If it had been they identified these these bad actors and they were like, then they took care of it. That's different. They swept crap under the rug. They tried to hide it.
And they doubled down.
That's the problem. And they doubled down on it. That's the problem. Absolutely not. So as with everything, I care about people who are at risk. Kids, vulnerable communities, the whole 9 yards. That is always going to be my priority, because people matter more than medals. And that upsets some folks. When I say that, they're like, oh, well, you're saying athletic achievement doesn't mean anything. No, I'm not. I'm saying if we were in a survival situation, I would not argue with you that water is crucial to survival, but not more important than air, motherfucker. Let's get our priorities straight. We're going to worry about the safety of individuals. We're going to worry about it being a good environment for them. And then we'll worry about who gets to put a damn medal on. And if your order of priorities is different than mine, I actively think you're a bad person. That's just how I feel about it.
100%.
I'm 100% locked in. I won't even go see the Flash right now because of certain issues. So that's how I feel about it.
Now, that guy, right?
Ezra Miller.
Yeah. Didn't he have like a cult? What was up with that?
They have a lot of alleged issues that's not getting.
Them. Yeah.
they have a lot of alleged issues. Them have not been convicted in any court. So therefore, just keep it clean and keep everybody away from somebody's lawyer. I'm just like, from what I've been hearing, if it's 2% true, I'm good.
Yeah, like it's not new for an actor to be an asshat. It's not. It is fairly new and fairly uncommon for an actor to be accused of allegedly putting minors at risk with firearms present, and perhaps detaining them and not allowing them to leave or manipulate them. That's not okay.
That's insane.
Insane covers about half of the things that are that Ezra Miller is currently facing.
Wow, he sounds just like a real piece of work.
So if I'm not planning to watch the movie either. I'm with Norris. That isn't about punishing Ezra. Ezra's been paid. That's about sending a message to Warner Brothers. You can't turn a blind eye to this stuff. But it'll probably do really well. They'll probably get away with, supporting this, and they probably won't learn a damn thing.
Facts, bro. But I'm still want to go see it. Now, as I believe in having open dialogue, and as of recently, the world divided us, strongly divide us. And I have so many international friends, so I've been noticing that the world is really trying to racially divide us. As a Marine, Kevin, in New York City recently, a Marine had to do his duty because somebody came on that train in a box and said, I don't care if I go back to jail. I'm willing to do whatever for food at this moment in my life. And unfortunately, he did what he had to do, and the world is trying to divide us. I think it's sad that the world tried to divide us when there's big play. But as Marine, as fathers, as husbands, what would you be willing to do if someone come on a box? I don't care if it's a space alien. I don't care if it's a woman. I don't care if it's a child. I don't care what the color of the person is. If somebody came in a box and said, I'm willing to do whatever for food, and I don't care who I got to hurt to get it. We are all fathers. We are all husbands. What would you do?
I will do what I have always done, which is use the least amount of force possible to resolve the situation, because that's what I was actually taught as a Marine. I don't know, and none of us in this conversation know 100% of what occurred. We know what we've been told through sensationalized media. We don't know the true extent to which that man presented himself as a threat. We know that he was perhaps mentally unwell. And you're talking to a guy who earlier this year, I think we talked about it on your podcast. I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but I diffused a situation where 2 guns were being pointed through me, and there was 8 drunk people. One guy had just been smacking the crap out of his girlfriend. I used the minimum amount of force. I would have been perfectly, according to the laws of the state of Maine, perfectly within my rights to snatch the gun out of either one of their hands and execute everybody who had presented a threat to me. I would have been, I don't know if that was possible. I don't know if that's what would have happened, but I would have been perfectly legally protected in doing so, given the situation. But that's not what I chose to do. I choose to diffuse situations to the best of my ability. If that means I restrain someone and I get stabbed a couple of times, I would rather do that than end the life if I can avoid it. If it is clear that someone else's life is actually at risk, not This guy set a threat, so I've got an opportunity to show what a man I am. Unfortunately, there's a lot of Marines out there. I don't know this guy. I don't know anything about him, but I do know a lot of Marines who are looking for an excuse to do violence. I do know a lot of men who associate that with being an actual man, who look for the opportunity to do those things. So I would be cautious. I don't know all of the facts. I can't speak to whether or not he did the right thing. We don't have a full picture of what happened. What I do know is a man is dead, and I'm not entirely sure it was necessary. We have a spectrum of force that we utilize and that we're trained in the Marine Corps. Unless you were legitimately, like, to give you an example from a deployment, being fired upon at 700 yards with AK-47s is not a real risk. It's not. We could have returned fire. We didn't. We could have sent out an Apache. We could have done a number of things. We could have rolled out there in MRAPs. We didn't. There were some kids, barely adults, who were trying to stick up for what they thought they believed, and they were firing from a distance that was completely ineffective and posed us no danger. But there were people who wanted to kill them for that. There are people who are going to disagree with me. I think it was the right decision that we did not use force in that scenario, especially given other factors that I can't speak to entirely openly, but people who were not involved could have been hurt.
And, going on what you said, if you did fire upon those kids, imagine if you killed those kids, how much would that stir up those people in that village? How much
I can tell you exactly how bad it would be.
From that,
yeah. That's how people are radicalized.
Exactly. So, I mean, sometimes you have to look for, the path of the least violence, even if
the spectrum of force properly utilized is using the lowest amount of force necessary to resolve a situation. That is the right thing to do. I think otherwise we're feeding our ego and our power fantasies when secretly, and folks out there, I don't know who's listening to this, ask yourself the last time or the next time that you see the opportunity for a physical altercation, is it actually necessary for you to use force, or you just want to? Right? And if it's you want to, that's something you need to work on, and that's not justification. If you have to justify, you've already accepted on some level that you're wrong.
I'm going to go a little bit off topic, but it's kind of on the same topic. I get this a lot from people that just try to troll on social media. They're like, "Oh, you've got big muscles, but you're
not bulletproof.
A guy could whoop your ass." And I'm like, I'm not looking to fight anyone. That's not my purpose of life. It's like, I'm a person of peace. I don't want to get in a fight, and like going about what you're saying, it seems like that manhood is really, applied to what kind of violence you can do. I think real manhood is having the ability to do violence, but choosing not to and choosing peace instead, and that's the life I choose. I try to be peaceful to people and spread love. And, I'm not about doing violence when it's not needed, but if it's defending someone, my family, and something that has to be done, I'm not going to take joy in it, but I will do it,
I think there's a massive difference fundamentally between being prepared and looking for an opportunity. And you really have to ask yourself, which is it that you're doing?
I agree, Kevin, because we were not in those circumstances, so we do not know 100% what's the truth. But I do know this much. As a person who grew up in inner city all my life, who grew up with control issues, I like the person I am today, and I always pride myself in staying within reasonable amounts of control. And I don't care about your protests, but like I saw a video where some guys trying to just go to work, and they're preventing them from going to work. But yet you claim people's lives matter. A cop just now got killed, but nobody don't want to talk about those issues because it doesn't fit the narrative when you got young men out here joining gangs and killing people. Why aren't we protesting that? And I even got caught caping for white supremacy today and on TikTok. And I just asked a personal question, which is very truthful. If you're currently using an iPhone, Android, or laptop to say this smart comment, congratulations, you played yourself because you're supporting white supremacy too. As I check, that technology that controls your electronical device, sir, ma'am, or they was made from some slave in the Congo digging up your cobalt. So therefore,
in Africa,
this black man is capable for anybody. Remember that shit next time you pick up your fucking smartphone. And fuck you.
Yeah. I mean, no one can really take the moral high ground because you're committing human rights violations without even knowing it half the time, just by the things you purchase or just things that you don't even think about. And that's just the way the world is. It can be a very vicious place. I try to stay away from the negativity. I mean, that's why I do lifting. It's therapeutic for me. It keeps me away from that. It keeps me focused, keeps life simple. And, sticking to the 3 lifts is a very simple way and a very enjoyable way of life for me. But I'm just that type of person that likes, maybe I'm not the smartest man on the earth, but I love having things simplified and, being able to help others, with whatever I can.
Hey, man, I appreciate you guys bearing with me because normally I'm in the studio, I'm in the house, and it's not blinking out, but you guys did a great job of holding Unpack Radio down for me today. So salute to you guys.
Hey, no biggie.
Information out so people can follow you and follow your journeys. I'm always proud to see what you're doing, and I look forward to one of these days pulling up on you.
Let's do it. Come out to California, both of you.
I do plan to come out to California. I've got some content to create with Silent Mike. I'd like to visit Alan Thrall. Michelle McDaniels, Obese to Beast. Gonna take, I'll let you know when I'm coming out. And there's a powerlifting competition in Maryland that I'm actually taking a look at maybe participating in with the USAPL.
I might be there with you because I've been looking around for something because I do want to jump off the porch one last time for the roll. I think I'm just going to do a squat only.
There you go.
Squat only. Okay. All right.
There you go.
I think I got a good game plan. I think by the time I jump off the porch again, I should be able to clear at least a 430.
Well, I'd love to talk with you offline about squat only and preparing for that. So if you want to utilize me as a resource, I'm here for you, brother.
Always reach out. I just spoke to Ryan a few days ago, just off the sideline comment about, cleaning up some credit issues. So, I reach out to you guys all the time for my main resources because I know who to come to when I need good information.
Oh, and Pope, your diet's looking on point, man. On the food eating on the Instagram, it's looking great. You're really doing a good job with it.
Brother, don't believe the hype because it's half that shit that I'll eat. You just don't fucking see.
Yeah, I know better. I fucking know better.
If I posted everything, you would be sadly disappointed.
I'm not seeing the M&Ms, the Oreos.
I just had before I left for dinner 3 cookies. I had a dinner.
Oh, no.
I literally had 6 Oreos for dinner tonight because I ran out of time to get home because I thought we were doing this at 7.
So therefore, don't believe the hype. I try to do my best to post positive change, and I try my best to be a positive influence for as many people as possible. That's why I really started focusing on like my dear uncle, where I try to keep young men accountable for their mistakes and try to keep hopefully them from going to jail. That's my only life goal now. Forget the fitness, forget everything. My main life goal is if I can reach one person and save them from all the mistakes that they're currently making, I have done my job.
Damn skipping.
Yeah.
I wish somebody had been there to talk. One of my oldest adopted brother, Danny, fell in with the wrong crowd, and he ended up just standing next to a guy who stabbed another man. And Danny, because he froze and didn't know what to do, was considered an accomplice and went to jail for 15 years.
Oh, no.
And I wish somebody had been there. I was too young, I wish somebody had been there to speak sense to him, to act as a mentor because, my dad was working all the time and he didn't listen to my mom. I wish that hadn't been his life experience. He lost so much.
That's important.
Yeah, so I see so many young men make these critical errors in their life. So that's why lately I just kind of got away from the fitness, and it's been mostly 100% of my content. Mainly, it's been just holding people accountable. Really being open and honest about, get an education, read more. Focus on really what you want in life, achieve your goals, and then focus on that and put the guns down. So I know you guys got your own fitness channels. Please put them out there so people can follow you.
Hey, it's just pure bullfit. Like, it's anywhere. It's just pure bullfit. If you want to find me, come and find me. But we sit and we talk with Norris all the time. So if you really want my thoughts, I'm gonna give them here. We've entered this stage. I don't know how old Jack is, but I definitely know. Oh, so we're all the same age. Cool. I just turned 44, and we're in this age where there's so much satisfaction, joy, and contentment in the idea of taking the 4 decades of experience that we have and making sure that people have a better opportunity than we did. I don't give a rat's ass about personal achievement anymore. I love molding young folk. I love helping them. There's so much satisfaction in that. That's what we get the opportunity to do. And fitness is just a mechanism for me. That's literally it. When I'm talking to kids, I'm talking to them about the overlap between physicality, mentality, emotionality, and spirituality. We're talking about the taking the lessons in iron, which is create small goals, work towards them to create bigger goals, to accomplish bigger things progressively, discipline being the thing that drives you from the peak of motivation to the next peak of motivation, because it undulates like a wave. And they take these things and they apply them to their life. They're stronger. They're more resilient. That's the real joy. Like, at the end of the day, my squat, my bench, my dead, who gives a shit? The fact that I'm strong yet disabled, didn't start till I was 35, got an interesting backstory. Screw all of that. If any of it takes a person and allows them to open up about their emotions, be more mentally resistant, be less likely to self-harm or put themselves in a bad situation, take care of themselves, live longer, have a higher quality of life. That's the shit that matters. And that's what we're in the position to do as positive-minded individuals who have each had our own tough experiences, trying to make sure that the people who follow behind us don't follow in those footsteps. They're propelled by them.
And those are the facts. And that's how we're going.
Sorry,
I just want to say that when I first started my fitness journey, Pure Bullfit was one of the YouTube videos that I started watching. There was a bunch of them. There was Massive Iron. There is but yours the first videos that I would watch. I would watch tutorials. I would watch the call out stuff.
Sorry about all that.
Learning about the fitness industry. So it's really great to have you here. How things come full circle.
Man.
Great to meet you. But my social media handle, I just, make stupid videos on Instagram, like I said before, with some silly music, is at star 32 R's, STARR 3934. And me and my friend are going to start a YouTube channel, but we haven't yet, but I'll keep you posted when we do.
And speaking of Coach Shaw, I'm trying to get him back on because I get tired of when I tune into TikTok, especially TikTok. And I hear people use his voiceover about the 315 bench press and have their ass be off the bench. So I cannot wait to get him back on the podcast so he can break down. He wasn't talking about you average day gym bros.
I remember the video.
He was talking about people who power lift.
Yeah, and it was a positive video. It was about having reasonable expectations and not comparing yourself to others. And the way that has been hijacked for jackwads to show off, it's ridiculous.
And then I'm like, if you're going to do it, at least keep your ass on the bench and do it for
do it right.
Do
it right. If you're going to use my man's voiceover, you got to do it.
Especially young people, you don't need back issues at that age. Do the correct form. Slowly build it up. The bench isn't supposed to blow up in a year. It's supposed to take a really long time. Incremental progress is key with the bench, especially.
Good luck getting through to any young person in today's social media with the idea that they're supposed to take their time.
Yeah.
They're surrounded by people who have extraordinary results through a combination of single-digit genetics and secret substance abuse. And they're like, well, the Trent twins went from a 315 bench press to a 500 bench press in 9 months, and they're natural.
The fact that they're called the Trent
twins. So that's what we're dealing with right now.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling to me, but I'm just like, when I do see it, I was like, hey, I've spoken to this person. I know this person. This is what they meant. And if you're going to use it, it will behoove you to do it correctly.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, I got called a jealous old man for calling someone out about this. But hey, I'm just like, to be honest, I only been lifting seriously for 4 years. I didn't start until my 40s.
Yeah, man. Like,
I was in high school. I did my thing in high school, but that was high school. I did a little wrestling, a little bit of track, but we didn't really focus on the weights back in those days. Now, as a 40-year-old man, I realize, hey, it's gonna help me live a little longer. So I gotta claim it fucking bang. But it's just disheartening when people use your friends and then they don't really understand what they mean, or even try to go to the person directly. I'm like, hey, what did you mean by this?
It is annoying, but they'll get over it, or they won't. It's no big deal. At the end of the day, Steve doesn't care.
Yeah.
I don't think he cares two fucks. Because his wife,
No, he doesn't.
His wife is beautiful
coach,
around the world, doing pageants and looking beautiful. So I don't care. I don't think he cares two fucks about you.
No, he doesn't.
Some punk kid that will never approach his total or his achievements.
Yeah.
There's always a bigger fish, and when you're screaming up at the bigger fish, that makes no damn sense.
Good point. Well, bros, man, as always, man, I love you guys.
Love you right back, brother.
It's been fantastic, and it's been great meeting everyone. And I hope we continue to connect. This has been a really awesome experience for me.
Oh, well, we do this every 3 months, so we'll be back at it in another 3 months.
Yeah. Nice.
So, guys, then, as always, salute.
Have a good one.
Peace, brother.
Bye.